Similarly, we had to work closely with industry sectors. Even truck drivers who had been stopping at the gates at the wharfs on a daily basis were suddenly saying, they're letting me through, why is this? There's a problem. And there was a significant body of work for us saying that this Fortress Australia mentality wasn't the best way of actually managing the risks. So what we were trying to do to get away from these very blunt look at everything approaches was to get a much more holistic understanding of the risks. And that meant looking at the science that was behind it, looking at the whole supply chain, where the containers were coming from, who was carrying them, where they were going to. We wanted to have a scalable and flexible approach to how we would implement new approaches at the border. We needed, and we're very aware of this, of ensuring that we had much better data and intelligence to support what we were doing. And while we had a strong idea at the beginning of what we wanted to do, we understood that information would come in while we were going through the implementation process, and that we would need to adapt the approach as we went, depending on what feedback we got and what data we got. And we certainly acknowledge the need for us to report more regularly and in more detail to our various industry stakeholders, and that was part of our important communication approach. The approach we took was in some ways a evolutionary approach. We designed a trial, we put trials in place at particular ports, we assessed the results of the trial, we adapted, we implemented that, and then developed the next stage so that we could take another step forward. The benefit of that was we not only learned as we went, but our stakeholders and our staff became comfortable with what we were doing. And we also did work with the most recent Australian standard on risk assessment, so there was an academically rigorous approach to what we were doing. What we called Phase 1 was implemented nationally on the 1st of July of last year. The approach was consistent across the country in the broad themes, but to deal with the different infrastructure that there is in different ports, we made locally appropriate adjustments. Now, the key issues that we had here was that containers which came from countries which did not have major pest concerns to us and which were destined for metropolitan areas are now only randomly checked. And we do that so that we can verify that the approach we're taking is appropriate, and we've been supported in that by the statistical analysis that ACERA has done for us. However, every container that was going to a rural area where the risk of the spread of a disease or a pest which might have significance was greater, and where the perceptions were greater, they are now inspected every single time, and very importantly, not only on the outside, which is what we were doing before, but on the inside as well. So the internal inspection is where we are more likely to find pests in the container than the outside, but that was something that was invisible before. Importantly, we've developed what we call a country action list. And that currently has 43 countries on it, which has known pests which are of concern to Australia, and where their history of biosecurity risk material being on the containers is higher. So every one of those now gets electronically flagged, and we look at those before they can leave the port. And that country action list replaces two previous giant African snail lists, and it focused on those countries which are of concern to Australia. And I might just say as an aside, the electronic system we've got to isolate containers which may have giant African snails on them is the superbly named S-Cargo. I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. Importantly, that's not a static list. We work with the overseas countries, which they all are, I guess, to work with us so they can get off the list and containers which they're sending to Australia can move through more quickly. So it started with 45 countries. We've had 2 countries which have developed port and container hygiene schemes, and so they are no longer considered to be of risk for us, but we still verify the quality of the containers they're sending our way. The important thing with this point that I've made is it's taking the risk offshore. It's saying that while in the past we just inspected at the border and tried to form a barrier here, now we're looking at things along the continuum of biosecurity, and if we can get rid of the risk before it even comes here, so much the better. And it not only benefits us, but it benefits the importers, it assists in the clearance of goods at the port, it speeds up the whole supply chain, so everyone benefits. The next stage that we're working on at the moment is continuing to build that offshore capacity. So we've worked with New Zealand to develop what we call a sea container hygiene scheme, where we work closely with the shipping companies and the offshore ports, which are the embarkation points for containers coming to Australia. So basically Australia and New Zealand have said, you take these countries, we'll take those ones, and we'll accept what each other's done. So Australia looks after PNG, which was the source of a lot of high-risk containers and a lot of dirty containers for us, and the Solomon Islands, and New Zealand is managing the container hygiene from Samoa, Tonga and Fiji. All those places are giant African snail risks, and they've been very interested in trying to have much better port protocols to assist us, because that also assists them. Importantly, we're working with industry to take some share of the responsibility. And so we're in the process of developing rewards for those companies who have consistent and very good track records of delivering clean containers to Australia. And Swire Shipping is one that I will mention that we have worked closely with to do that. And all the while, we're continuing to increase our knowledge and our awareness and analysis so that we can basically become more flexible in how we manage the risks and focus on the things that matter. And that's a very important point. Until recently, we had a very static approach, look at everything no matter what. Now we make choices and can focus much more effort where we're most likely to find stuff and more effort on the things that matter most. So, in summary, this has had some really significant benefits for the way people in the organisation think about managing risks. It's about moving people from being just processors to being decision makers and to developing a more focused and targeted approach so we deal with the hierarchy better. I think that we've learnt from some of the mistakes we might have made along the way and the importance of having this broad communication approach so that we can deliver a positive message about doing things better rather than having a defensive approach and reacting to the latest criticism that comes our way. The result really is a template for a better way of dealing with real risks in what is a very complex supply chain, providing rewards for those who help us and sanctions for those who are difficult. And that actually provides benefits not only for us, not only for industry, but much more broadly to the community. Thank you.